What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from Mtg. We like magic, and today I'm going to bring you my top 10 sleepers in Ixalan. Now, these are all cards that are a little bit under the radar. There's not a whole lot of buzz about a whole lot of these cards, but I think they might be way better than people are initially evaluating them. So let's go ahead and hit the list. I'm going to give you an honorable mention first, and that's Sunbird's Invocation. I could also put Revel and Riches in this spot because there's going to be Brave Souls to try to build that deck. I'm going to have to be one of them, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll talk about that deck a little bit more later, actually. But I want to focus on Sunbird's Invocation because I think I might be the only YouTuber that ever actually really talks about this card for any length of time, because I don't expect it to do a whole lot. That's why it's in the honorable mention slot. There's a stupid 6 or 7 mana enchantment in like every set, but at least for casual or maybe even F&M play, this effect looks really good. It's a better version of Cascade on all of your spells. Better because it lets you cast spells that have the same CMC as a spell you originally cast. Cascade, spell you cast for free, has to be less in converted mana cost than the spell you originally cast. So this is just a better version of Cascade that every single spell that you cast out of your hand gets. That's like, there's a whole lot of deck building like space available here. A lot of potential, you know? If you're just looking for like a fun build around card, that probably isn't the most competitive thing in the world, but if your number one concern is fun, then I would probably say Sunbird's Invocation fits the bill better than any card in the entire set. But we're actually in the list now. My number 10 is Waker of the Wilds. Now, usually I'm not a huge fan of creatures that you have to like wait to untap with to get value out of, but I might be willing to make a concession with Waker, mostly because untapping with it does look absolutely ridiculous. You can either make like a couple of small guys or make one huge guy, and in decks that want to produce a lot of mana quickly, then it's fairly likely that you'll be able to play a Waker and get value out of it on the same turn. That's really good. And at that point, if they do kill your Waker, it's left value behind. That's a sign of a good Magic card. So even though it looks a little bit clunky, and in most cases you're going to have to wait to untap with it, there are some really cool things to like about Waker. My number 9 is River's Rebuke. Now this looks like a pretty powerful Magic card. One-sided Bounce Wrath? Count me in, right? 6 mana looks like just about exactly the right rate for this effect to be fair. Problem is, our aggro decks that probably want to play this to finish the game most of the time, wanting to play a 6 mana sorcery. Are they going to want to devote slots to that? I kind of don't think so, but I also... A lot of us said that like Ramanap Red is almost never going to be able to eternalize its Earthshaker Kenra. As a matter of fact, it does so all the time. Aggro decks get to 6 mana, so a card like this could be okay, but you don't want it in your opening hand. It'll just rot for a few turns until you get to it, you know. And the aggro decks that are probably going to see play with blue in them, mostly pirates, but there's also a Simic aggro deck popping up. I just don't know if they want to devote slots to this. I don't know if they want to hold up a 6 mana sorcery. It's just, yeah, the effect is super powerful, but at the higher end of competitive, is it good enough at 6 mana? Again, looks like a fair rate, but is it a competitive rate? I don't know. But it could be because, again, the effect is so ridiculous. My number 8 is Entrancing Melody. Now, this doesn't look super great at first reading or anything, but then you get to thinking. First of all, Confiscation Coup is what we want to compare this to in Standard. Coup, for 5 mana, looks probably like the better spell a lot of the time. It can just nab much bigger creatures, more impactful creatures, for a lower cost than Entrancing Melody can. But it's when you start looking at 1 and 2 mana creatures that you might want to steal, that Melody is obviously the better card. Now, there are plenty of 1 and 2 mana creatures that are impactful in Standard, but Modern has things like Death Shadow, and you can just nab it for 3 mana. That doesn't seem terrible at all, you know. You can also nab a Tarmogoyf, but there's probably better ways to deal with Tarmogoyf than a 4 mana sorcery. All I'm saying is that this card is better than Control Magic in some circumstances, and Control Magic is sort of the OG nab a guy spell. So, and this is better than Control Magic if you're able to play it for 4 and nab a 2-drop, because they could always just like kill your Control Magic. They could disenchant it and get their guy back. With this, they can't ever do that. So in a way, it's better. So I like that. I like when you can nab dudes that are really, really small and still impactful. Grab that Kari Zev for 4 mana. Doesn't seem too bad, actually. So it's on my radar. I'm on the lookout for it. For now, I think Coup is probably the better card. But if really impactful creatures start coming at 1 and 2 mana, then this is at least something to look out for, because that's a heck of a deal. My number 7 is MF Dusk, man. Maverick Fane, Dusk Apostle. I actually think that this is not a bad card at all. The turn that you play it, given that you attack with a vampire, you can get immediate value out of it on the turn you play it. I like creatures like that already established. So that's pretty cool. And if you can play it for 3 mana, attack with a vampire that turn, get a 1/1 lifelink out of it, you've gotten plenty of value out of your 3 mana. You got a 2/2 and a 1/1 lifelink. That's cool. But next turn, you're very likely to be able to attack again. At that point, you've gotten 4 power, 2 of it lifelink among 3 dudes for your 3 mana investment. It's not like you had to invest any more mana into attacking with a creature. So that actually seems like a very good investment for oftentimes at least 3 creatures, given, again, that you can untap with this dude. So in some turns, you won't have to untap with it to get value out of it. It's very easy, as a matter of fact, to get immediate value out of Maverick Fane. So I'm a big fan of this. I think it's flying under a lot of people's radars right now, mostly because vampires aren't looking super impactful, but this might be the card that makes vampires at least worth playing at F&M. I think this card is way more powerful than it originally looks. It's not Monastery Mentor or anything, although the first thing I thought was, that's not Monastery Mentor, so it at least brought Mentor to mind. It's not as powerful as that, but it can still get you a fair amount of value in just a couple of turns for your 3 mana. I think it's worth taking a look at. My number 6 is Ruthless Knave, the only uncommon on the list, although I will throw a nod at Perilous Voyage. Perilous Voyage does not look like a bad Magic card to me at all, but as far as Ruthless Knave goes, I think that in exactly the right deck, this could easily be a good card. This is why I wanted to bring up the Revel in Riches deck. This is obviously the 3-drop for Revel in Riches, but outside of that deck, there's just a lot of value on this card, you know? If you can somehow find a way to build an Aristocrats type deck, let's say, and get value out of sacrificing a creature, well, you'll be getting an upside out of the sack effect, and 2 treasures, and the ability to occasionally draw cards, all for 3 mana. That also seems like a decent investment for 3 mana too, you know? So I'm a fan. We'll see what happens with this card. I think that some pieces will have to fall into place for this to truly be good, but, I mean, 2 ramps, 2 chances to fix, all for sacrificing a guy, which can easily be an upside, and you can sometimes draw. That's just... come on. Like, this sort of reminds me of Tireless Tracker, probably just because of the converted mana cost and stats and the ability to occasionally draw you a card. But remember that for the first, month and a half of Standard that Tireless Tracker was in, he flew under the radar too. So I'm not saying that Ruthless Knave is as good as Tracker is, but let's at least not let it happen again. Let's test some with Ruthless Knave before we just say that it's bad, because there's an awful lot of potential on this card. My number 5 is Deeproot Champion. Now, people have not been talking about this at all, but it's exciting to me because it reminds me of Kyrian Dryad, a card that I really liked a lot way back in the day. I've already talked about Simic Aggro, and I think this card could go really well in Simic Aggro with stuff like Blossoming Defense, and you've also got Spell Pierce, which will give it a +1/+1 counter too. There's lots of ways to protect this guy. I think that this could be pretty decent in a Simic Riddle form deck. Lee's going to try to draft it up. You know, you could play easily 26 spells in that deck, plus Deeproot Champion and Siren Stormtamer, and have some real threats. A lot of pump spells, some counter magic. I think that Simic Tempo might be real, and a big part of that is Deeproot Champion. You can easily get this guy big and protect it all game. So, huge fan. We'll see what happens. I just always like creatures like this, and I think it has a chance. My number 4 is Spell Swindle. Now, I don't think this will see all the play in the world, but remember when Confirmed Suspicions came out and we were like, oh, that's a bad card? It actually saw some play occasionally. There were many times that I saw 1 or 2 of Confirmed Suspicions in top 8 lists, and I think that Spell Swindle is way better in some ways than Confirmed Suspicions was. Now, Suspicions was a dream for control decks. Being able to counter a spell and essentially draw 3 cards for mana investment is great for control decks, yes, but so is this mana fixing. I'm not super amazed with the ramp yet. It can allow you to play Torrential Gearhulk and still have mana left to back it up. That seems okay, yes, but at the same time, control decks also love fixing. If we're going to see a 3-color control deck in this format where we just lost a bunch of dual lands, then a card like this might go a long way towards enabling those decks to actually play their Nicol Bolas, for instance. So I like Spell Swindle. I could easily see it as a one-of in control decks. If you can get it off against a 3 to 5 mana spell, I'm not going to say you win the game, but you've gotten a long way towards winning the game at that point. Countering one of their best plays and getting a ton of mana and fixing for it is going to be lights out in a lot of situations. This is a really powerful counterspell, and maybe one of the best counterspells above 3 mana I've ever seen. It's very close right there with Dismiss. You know, it's that level as far as I can tell from initially evaluating this card. Mana Drain's always been amazing because Mana Drain is 2 mana, but how much better do you have to make Mana Drain to make it 5 mana? I think exactly this much better. So look out. I think Spell Swindle is better than it appears. My number 3 is Dreamcaller Siren. Now, one of the big reasons people aren't paying attention to this is because they have already decided that Hostage Taker is the much better 4-drop in a Pirates deck. I agree. Hostage Taker is one of the best cards that I haven't gotten a chance to talk about yet. You know, it could definitely have been in the top 25 video because it may be, end of the day, one of the absolute best Pirates and the one that you're going to play a 4 of in Pirates most of the time. So I just wanted to bring up Hostage Taker. I do think that it's probably better than Siren, but Siren is a huge bomb some of the times, and you can't ignore that. I mean, picture it. Sicily, 1920, I'm sorry, Golden Girls joke. Anyway, picture it. Your opponent declares their attack step and they've just played a Hazoret. They got a couple of other guys. Well, at that point, Siren can flash in, tap down Hazoret, and another creature. It's not going to be able to block a whole lot in the Ramanap Red deck, given that. But it's still going to be a blowout. You can tap down their Hazoret, keep it from attacking, keep another guy from attacking, and keep both of those creatures from blocking on your next turn. That seems so good, and you'll also be attacking with a 3/3 and at least one pirate. So this seems like it could lead to some blowouts. I love flash creatures. I love like efficiently costed flying creatures, especially again when they have flash. And I love enter the battlefield triggers, and this is definitely not a bad ETB trigger. The amount of tempo you can generate with this is kind of scary considering you're going to deny them from attacking with their 2 best creatures, and you're going to be more easily able to get through on your next turn. Tempo decks Dream and it flies. There's a lot to like about Dreamcaller Siren. This is a very powerful card, despite what's also in the same slot as it in a lot of decks. So that's all I'm going to say. I know Hostage Taker's the better 4-drop, but Dreamcaller is kind of ridiculous when you evaluate it in a vacuum. My number 2 is Dowsing Dagger. Now, this is the most expensive card on the list, but from what I can tell, that's because it is being invested in by more casual players. And a lot of spikes or otherwise ultra-competitive people that I've seen talk about this card are sort of backing off on it, and I understand the excuses why. They're the same excuses I would normally make. There are definitely odd things about this card when it comes to a deck builder's approach, you know. If you're going to play Dowsing Dagger and flip it reliably and get it reliably, you have to be able to dig for it and find it when you need it, so you have to devote slots to that. You also have to devote slots to at least unblockable creatures or Key to the City, or at the very least, creatures with flying, a large number of creatures with flying. And then when you transform it into Lotus Veil, once all that work pays off, you gotta have something to cast with it too. You have to have high converted mana cost stuff that actually, you know, makes it worth playing and flipping into Lotus Veil. So, from a deck builder's standpoint, there are an awful lot of concessions that one has to make. The deck doesn't necessarily build itself or anything, but you have to have a plan, and it has to be consistent. And with the amount of concessions one has to make to to transform this card, that can get a little bit tricky. So I understand all the restraints involved in the card, but I'll counter that with it transforms into maybe one of the best lands in Magic history. Tap for 3 of any color. That is not even like maybe, you know, that is pretty realistically one of the best lands in Magic history. So it might be worth it just for that. You know, there may be a deck that utilizes this card in exactly the right way and we just don't know about it yet. So I'm not going to call this card a trap. I think there might be a way. We might have to wait until Rivals of Ixalan or something, but I think there's a deck out there somewhere that uses this card just right. My number 1 might be a little surprising, but my number 1 is Captain Elena Storm. This card looks super boss to me. There's just so much versatility here, you know? 3 mana, 2/2 haste is at least okay. It's nothing to write home about, but the turn she comes in, she can attack for 3 hasty, that's not bad, or she can store you a treasure that can help you ramp, help you fix your mana just right, that's awesome. You can store those treasures up and ramp all at one time. You can store them up and make her bigger all at one time. There's just so much that this card can do, and she gives you an artifact for artifact synergies if that's important to you. So she just does so much. There's so much value on this card, you know. It attacks relatively profitably a lot of the time. It's splashable, but yet also fixes your mana. It's like, get you a girl that can do both. Get you a girl that can do all 4. Like, she can attack profitably, she's got haste, she can ramp you, she can fix you, she can make herself bigger. That's like 5 things. There's just like, she's really, really versatile is all I'm saying. There is so much play in the text box of this card. So I would not be in any way surprised if we saw Elena Storm at some point. The card's just kind of obviously really good to me, and I'm really surprised that I don't see anybody really talking about her. But anyway, that's my list for now at least. Let me know of any sleeping giants that I may have missed down there in the comments section. I'm always interested in what you're interested in. You can like the video if you enjoyed the video. I hope you did. I put some work in. You can follow me on Twitter at SBMTGDev, or if you're a real hero, you can kick us a buck on Patreon at patreon.com/SBMTG. Hope you guys are still here, because with the end of this video real quick, I just want to point out a couple of cards that I didn't talk about in this video or the top 25 video that I still think are worth picking out. And you can find them on TCG Player right now. They're my sponsor, and they help me bring you this content. So here's a couple of cards that I haven't actually gotten a chance to really talk about yet. First of all, Vraska's Contempt, pretty cheap right now on TCG Player, and it almost certainly gets at least a 1 or 2 of slot in blue-black or possibly Esper or Grix's control list. This is a very real card that answers a lot of important things in the format, and will probably see at least some amount of play, so it might be worth your attention. There's also Rampaging Ferocidon. I like this card an awful lot, and I felt like I'd seen just enough people talk about it to keep it off of the sleepers list, but just not enough people talk about it to keep it off of the top 25 list. It occupies kind of a weird space, but it is very obviously a pushed Magic card, and will probably have a home somewhere at some point too. So keep your eye out for Rampaging Ferocidon. I like this card a lot. And I guess the last thing I want to talk about that I haven't mentioned yet and probably should have, this very easily could have and probably should have made my top 25, and that's Search for Azcanta. This card is relatively cheap. It's only a little over $4 on TCG Player right now, and I think it may go over that. Not only because it's obviously going to be in every standard control deck, or at least I think obviously, and so do a lot of people way above my blood level, but there are even people talking about this card in Modern. It's a little bit grindy, but Modern Control, for what it's worth, may absolutely want this card. So, and the front half does not do bad stuff in Modern, by the way. Let me just point it that way. So I like this card. Probably should have made the top 25. I should at least bring it up here. But it's all the cards I wanted to talk about here at the end of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed all of this, and I'll catch you cats later. I'm Dev from The Place. Thanks for watching, my wizards.